talk through, hey, you know, can I co-sign for this loan? Can I spend money on furniture? Just making sure that your approval is still going to stay intact through settlement. I do have some buyers where I'm like, you know, wait to buy that furniture until you close, and then once you close, you're free to do whatever you like. So once you have your final approval from underwriting, we're then going to issue your clear to close. You'll schedule your settlement with your real estate agent and sign your closing documents from there. One thing that I always mention is that you're always going to skip the month after you close. So you don't pay a mortgage payment for the month following your closing. So if you settle in May, skip June, your first payment would be July 1st. So that at times can help you decide, you know, how to budget and time the process of when you're looking to purchase. Okay. All right. So now to kind of just dive into the different mortgage products. A conventional loan, the basis of that is going to be for stronger credit borrowers, and it allows for 3% down. FHA allows for lower credit scores, so we do go down to a 580 credit score with FHA financing, which will allow for 3.5%. USDA also allows for lower credit scores, and that is suitable for more rural and remote areas. So there's a map the property has to be within. And then VA financing is for veterans, active military members, and surviving spouses of military members, which allows for 0% financing. All of these programs are going to be able to be paired with our down payment assistance programs and grants that I will touch on later in the slides. Your most popular first-time buyer program, though, is going to be FHA financing because it has more flexible income and credit requirements. All right, so the next slide I have is just to kind of touch on credit and what makes up your credit score. So the number one thing will be your payment history, so avoiding late, anything that reports to credit, such as credit cards, student loans, personal loans, car loans. Number one thing is avoiding those late payments. They're impossible to get off, so avoiding those is crucial. The second area that can impact scores, and is really the number one way to boost your credit score, is through the utilization of your credit cards. So what I always encourage buyers or anyone, even if you're not looking to purchase a home, just anyone using credit in general, is to use credit cards to only 20% of the limit of the card and pay them off to zero. So let's say, for example, the card limit is $1,000. If you use it to just $200 and pay it off to zero, that's going to have a very strong impact on your score. However, on the flip side, let's say you maxed that credit card out at $900 and then you paid it off to zero each month. Because you've maxed out the card, that is actually causing a strain on your credit score. So you want to use low utilization is the number one way to boost your scores. Also, length of credit history or credit age is important. So one loophole with credit is that you can be added on as an authorized user to, let's say, a family member or friend's credit card who has superior credit to get a strong boost in your credit score. So this is one thing that, you know, is kind of a loophole of the industry because you haven't necessarily built that credit yourself, and you'll get that credit age of that other borrower, of that other owner of the credit card. So something to keep in mind there. Credit mix and new credit are going to be the lowest amount. So for example, student loans, car loans, personal loans, they're really not having a strong impact on your credit like that credit card will. So again, that low utilization of a credit card is my number one bit of advice there. All right, so this next slide is going to give you an overview of what makes up the monthly mortgage payment. As I mentioned, if you're looking on the internet at properties, you're going to see a payment that is typically significantly less than what your actual payment will be. And that's because it's including 20% down, which most first-time buyers, or most buyers in general, are not necessarily putting down. So this is going to give you an idea of what makes up your mortgage payment. So principal is what you're paying down on the loan each month. And then interest is what is paid to the bank for taking out the loan. Interest is tax deductible, just as property taxes. So making sure that the numbers that you're given for your monthly mortgage payment are accurate and we have the correct tax bill is a big part of getting these numbers from your actual loan officer that's local and knows the market here. Then homeowner's insurance is going to be to protect the structure of the property, similar to car insurance, but this is for your home. And then lastly, mortgage insurance is a fee that's charged unless you're putting 20% down on a conventional loan, or if you happen to be a veteran, that charge is applicable. All right, so the next slide that I just wanted to go over with you talks about the different down payment assistance programs and grants that we offer in the state of Maryland specifically. We are licensed in 32 states, so we do have different grant and down DPA programs elsewhere. So if you happen to go to DC or Virginia, just know that we have programs there as well, but I'm kind of focusing on Maryland here. So Baltimore City has their Live Near Your Work programs. They also have their what's used to be called CDBG. Now they call it their First Time Buyer Incentive Program. That program gives anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. There's a kind of a complicated calculation that determines how much you're eligible for those programs. And anytime you work with me, I'm going to qualify you for all the programs specific to you. So let's say you're buying in Baltimore City, that tells me, oh, I need to see if he or she qualifies for that. Montgomery County, Washington County, Hagerstown, PG County, and Howard County all also have specific programs there. Also, Harford County has an additional program. And then to the right side, you're going to see that Maryland State has their own program. So they have their First Time Advantage program, which is our most popular DPA program, and that gives between 5 and 6% towards your upfront cost to purchase. So the state of Maryland has a ton of different programs. And then lastly, we have the FHLB grant. So this particular program gives anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 depending on your income, household size, and occupation. So educators, healthcare workers, you get that added incentive for utilizing this program, which is typically to get that highest level of $20,000 towards purchasing. So one thing you can definitely take away from this is that you do not necessarily need to have a lot of money to purchase. I often have clients who close. I had someone close just the other day, and they were actually getting a check back at closing, which was their deposit. So just something good to keep in mind there. The last slide that I wanted to kind of go over with you is just a rough idea of what a scenario looks like, just to kind of give you a rough idea of kind of what to expect. So let's say on a $300,000 purchase, your down payment would be 3%, which is $9,000. For a loan amount of $291, current interest rate would be at about 6.5% for a conventional loan. That monthly payment would equate to about $2281, which means that your total cost to close with down payment and closing costs are about $24,792. Now let's say that we're using the state of Maryland's assistance program, which is giving you about $15,000. That means that the remaining cash to close is about $9,792. If you are using, let's say, Baltimore City's grant program or the FHLB grant, that program could be used to cover the remaining costs that's left over. Therefore, in that example, that borrower could bring no money to closing, or even the remaining costs could also be paid for by the seller with what's called seller help. So basically, there are a lot of different ways to kind of skin the cat here. Just like Katie mentioned, it depends on your strategy, where you're buying, and what your qualifications are. So, yeah, so those are the end of my slides. I would love to hear if you guys have any questions that I could answer.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my question slide because it has our information on it. And you guys could still type your questions in the chat, or you can unmute your mic. Okay, so we got a question in the chat. How often does the assistance programs come around?
Good question. So the state of Maryland's program has never run out of funding. So that one really has funding all the time. Baltimore City's program just got funding again. I feel like it's a mixed bag. There's always going to be some money out there. So like if one runs out, the other one gets funding. So the one program ran out, and then literally 3 days later, another program gained funding. So I feel like there's always opportunities, you know. So it is a mixed bag. So it just depends, but the state of Maryland always has funding. It has literally never ran out of funding. So that's why that one's the most popular program.
Thank you for that. As an investor, what would you suggest for getting approved for a foreclosure property?
So from the lending perspective, foreclosures are in themselves are not a problem as long as they are livable. If they're not livable, let's say that there are numerous repairs that need to be completed, then we as the lender would just need, you would need to qualify for a renovation loan. So that is an option. It's actually a specialty of my team. So we've always done a lot of renovation financing. So sometimes foreclosures can fall into that. And if you were open to that, that would just be part of what we pre-qualify you for. Now, if the foreclosure required renovation financing, just know that the down payment assistance programs do not allow them to be paired with a renovation loan. So you just need to be prepared to cover your own down payment and closing costs, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. Next question we have is the USDA map accessible to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw that in the chat, actually.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank
Sure.
you. What assistance do you provide to individuals with lower credit scores?
So certain programs have a credit score requirement, such as the Maryland Mortgage Program, and then others like the Baltimore City Program do not necessarily have a credit score requirement. So it just depends on which program we're accessing. Yeah, every county can be different. So I think the local county government ones, some have a credit score requirement, some don't. Baltimore City doesn't. Howard County does not. The state of Maryland does. The FHLB grant does not have a credit score requirement, and that one we can use in any of the states that Maryland basically touches. So PA, Maryland, Virginia, BC, West Virginia, Delaware. That one doesn't have a credit score requirement.
And this just reminded me can you tell everyone who's on the call what states you work in? Because there are participants on here who are not living or would be purchasing in Maryland.
Yeah, so we're licensed in 32 states, including all the states that touch Maryland. If you have I can throw also in the chat by the states that we're licensed in, just because I'm sure you don't want to have me go through 32. I find that they're most states that I get kind of people moving to: Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, California, all of those we're licensed in. The only state, and I happen to be from there, that we're not licensed in, and I know we are getting licensed in, is New York. That's the only one we're not currently licensed in. That's pretty common. But I'll throw that also in the chat there.
Okay.
New York just has a lot of red tape to get licensed, so.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Does FHLB currently have funding?
It does, yep, for us. Now, every lender has like a different stipend that they get, so it depends on like when we will be close to the end of that stipend, but it does currently have funding for us.
Okay, and I just learned something because I didn't know each lender had their own stipend.
Correct, that's right. So where you may hear one lender is out of funding, another lender may still have funding. So
Okay.
we currently do.
Okay, someone wrote, to be clear, there is no assistance programs that can cover renovation loans. Would they still qualify for 3.5% down payments?
Yes, that is correct. So there are no DPA or grant programs that can be paired with renovation financing. Therefore, you'd have to be prepared to cover the 3.5% down payment with FHA. There is a conventional version with just 3% down as another option. We also have a VA option, which is 0% down, and USDA is also 0% down. Seller help is still allowed for all of those programs, just like it would be for the normal, the non-renovation product as well.
You guys asked some good questions.
Yeah, you guys do have great questions. All the good questions.
We have time for a few more, but I did want to offer the recording of this webinar series to you. Well, not series, but webinar to you. So if you would like a recording, type yes in the chat. I will also accompany that with a few resources for you to use on your journey. And feel free to text, call, email myself or Pam at any time. We have an open door policy with answering questions. Even if you just want to run an idea, a scenario by us, go ahead. Many times, as Pam said, the thing that's stopping you or your fear towards buying a property or like owning, it is sometimes like a really simple fix. Okay, USDA has 0% down payment. Can you get assistance to cover the closing costs?
That is correct, you can. So in that example, if the seller covered all your closing costs, you could purchase the property with little to no money into the actual transaction.
Nice. Can you qualify for programs along with the USDA trend?
Yeah, you can, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You like the MMP, the State of Maryland's program, FHLB, Harford County's programs, any of the county specific ones, you could also stack with that. That's right. Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and put my calendar in the chat again. If the time that's there doesn't work for you, you can email or text me and I can see about another time that best suits you. But go ahead and book your free consultation. It's a time for us to go through your personal story, your personal situation, and create a tailored game plan for you. I cannot wait to
And I will
talk to
also,
you.
if it's
Yeah.
oh, you already have my information up there. I guess I don't need to put it in the chat. I can see it up there. Never mind.
Yeah. Screenshot this if you're on your phone. Oops. Screenshot this if you're on your phone. And when I send the follow-up email, all our contact information will be in there as well. But I can't wait to speak to you and partner with you on your purchase to getting your dream home. And again, happy Teacher and Nurse Appreciation Week. We're really, really lucky to have so many teachers and nurses, dedicated teachers and nurses in our community.
Definitely. Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the chance
Yes,
to
thanks.
connect with all of you.
Yes, thanks for all of the knowledge, Pam. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. I'll send it. It depends on how long it takes to download. Sometimes it takes a few hours, but if not, I'll send it tomorrow. Because sometimes the recording takes a really long time to download. You're welcome. Do you have any questions, Tadara?